Hello all. In the last class, we have started looking at the introduction to subsurface and design, and we have started looking some of the terminologies related to the flow through porous media. We have seen the energy diagram for different cases, for Darcy's experiment, typical Darcy experiment, how to draw the energy diagram that we have seen. And then we have seen the cases related with the when the flow is happening effectively in the vertical direction, what will happen to the vertical hydraulic conductivity and the horizontal hydraulic conductivity that we have seen. And then we started discussing about the basic equation of steady state hydrostatics and then movement of fluid in the porous media. So we have come up, so we have arrived at this equation, which talks about the discharge or the flow velocity, specific, or you can say specific discharge in x, y, and z direction. So, so Qx is equal to, that's the discharge in x direction, or velocity in x direction is equal to minus k d phi by dx. This is the total potential. K is actually hydraulic conductivity or coefficient of permeability. The hydraulic conductivity that can be written K, the capital K can be written as is equal to K rho g upon mu. And where phi is actually the total head that is represented by gravitational head plus pressure head. That is equal to rho phi is equal to z plus p by rho g. And then we have seen what is meant by isotropic and anisotropic media. Okay, and then and then what is mean by what is homogeneous and isotropic media, some terms. And then let's continue the discussion. Let's discuss the continuity equation here. So this is actually for a steady state condition. We are writing a continuity equation. So let's consider a cube, which is actually made up of, which is a kind of, which is actually fully saturated and incompressible porous medium. So consider a case fully saturated and incompressible porous medium. And then we know that according to the principle of conservation of mass, if the flow is, so there cannot, for a steady state condition, the no net inward, there can be no net inward or no net outward flow. Okay. So we can write the net outward flux by this way. So total net outward flux can be written as what is coming out minus what is coming in. Okay, so this is in y direction, so this is in x direction, and this is in z direction. So in x direction we can write this is the density times the flux, the flow vector rho qx2 minus rho qx1 multiplied by the surface, multiplied by this cross section area, that is actually delta y by delta z. So that is your the first term, rho qx2 minus rho qx2 minus rho qx1 multiplied by delta y plus delta y into delta z, plus what is happening in the y direction, rho qy2 minus rho qy1 multiplied by this cross section area, or delta z by delta z into delta x, plus what is happening in z direction. So rho qz2 minus rho qz1 multiplied by del x into del y. So this is the total net outward flux. Essentially, it should be equal to 0. Okay. So it means that there is no possibility of storage because we assume that the soil or medium is incompressible and fully saturated. So this is a continuity equation. So this is or we can write d by dx of rho qx plus d by dy of rho qy plus d by dz of rho qz is effectively equal to 0. So if so we can so since rho is a constant, we can omit this one. So this equation can be written like this: partial derivative of this one d by dx of qx plus d by dy of qy plus d by dz of qz is equal to 0. So this is this can be written like this: divergence of rho q is equal to 0. So this is the equation of continuity for steady state flow. Continuing the same thing, so we have arrived at this equation, and initially in the last few slides, we have seen like these equations based on the Darcy's law. So combining these two equations together here, so we have four equations from the Darcy's law. With four, okay, so this is Qx, Qy, Qz, and one expression for phi, and one expression for this from this mass conservation. So we can substitute the value of Qx, Qy, and Qz in this expression. So this expression will become like this. So by substituting this value of Qx, Qy, and Qz, Qx, Qy, and Qz from the Darcy's law in this equation, we can write this, we can arrive at this equation. So this is dy dx of k d phi by dx plus dy by dy of k d phi by dy plus dy dz of k d phi by dz is equal to 0. Okay. Now, if k is if it is isotropic medium, k can be omitted here. So this is a single equation with one variable phi. Okay, so then we have only one expression for this expression. But if k is the soil or this medium, porous medium is not isotropic, means the porosity is changing in different directions. So k here we have to write kx, here we have to write ky, and here we have to write the value of kz. If the medium is isotropic, then kx, ky, and kz will be equal to k. In that case, this equation will work, and in anisotropic media, this expression will work. Okay, so this is so let's assume that the medium is isotropic. It means kx, ky, and kz is equal to k, and this can be omitted, and this equation can be written like this. So if you see this equation, this is actually your standard Laplace equation, which can be written like this. So this is your Laplace operator of phi is equal to 0. So this is the standard Laplace equation. This is a very important equation for in case of your notice. Okay, so till now we have seen the three equations, the Darcy's law that that denotes the discharge or the flow through porous media in x and y in a different direction, and the continuity equation. This is a continuity equation and Laplace equation. So these are three basic, very important equations that governs the flow through porous media. Okay, now coming to some other terminologies. The water table we all know, the free water surface in the soil where soil water pressure equal to 0. Then next is the equipotential line. So let's say this dark black color line denotes the water table, and okay, and this dotted line denotes the equipotential line. So equipotential lines are lines of having equal potential. Okay? And the flow lines or stream lines are perpendicular to this equipotential line. So it means this is higher potential to this one. The flow will take place from this point to this point. As you can see, let's say this point is having higher potential compared to any point here. Okay, so there is a potential difference, so the flow will take place. So this is a flow line, and these are the equipotential lines. So the potential values are constant along this equipotential line. Another important thing you can see, this flow line intersect this equipotential line at right angle, and two equipotential lines never intersect each other. So this is the equipotential line. Yeah, and this is the same thing. So this is your equipotential line that is denoted by this green color. So these are the equipotential line, and flow is happening from higher potential to lower potential, and that can be denoted by this flow line or stream line. Okay? And the combination of the stream lines and equipotential lines are known as the flow net. So equipotential lines are actually the lines where the total head is same, so which is similar to your contour lines. So this is your equipotential line where the elevation or where the potential is same, and these are your flow lines along which flow takes place. Okay. These flow lines also known as the stream lines along which flow occurs. So stream lines is a curve which is everywhere tangent to the local instantaneous field. So these are actually your these are your streamline, red color denoted by the red color, and these are the velocity vectors that are perpendicular or tangent at that particular instant. So the streamline is a curve tangent to the flow field everywhere, as shown in this figure. Here the streamlines are drawn in the red color and the velocity vectors are represented tangent to it at particular instance denoted by the blue color. So these are the streamlines. Um, okay, so what is streamline? So streamline is intuitively, if you can say that it's a path that a massless particle will follow if it is released in a steady state environment. So for example, if you release a ball and if you place it in water, assuming that the water flow does not vary with the time, that is a steady state condition. So the trajectory of ball in that case will be the streamline. Okay. And these are various streamlines, and you can, and this is the stream tube. Path line is similar to the streamline, but only difference here is actually your flow is unsteady. Okay. So this is the path line. So streak line is actually uh, the definition of streak line is actually the locus of points of all the fluid particles that have passed continuously to a particular special point in the path. So this is the locus of all the points. So for example, if you see a incense stick, or if the smoke is released from a stick, so the smoke is nothing but it's kind of streak line. Okay. So here in this case, you can see the yellow arrow denotes the path line, which is actually following the unsteady behavior of flow, how the particle is facing, and the green color is actually a streak line. Okay, so this is your path line. So depending on the time, the flow velocity or the flow characteristics are changing. So that is actually yellow color line. Denote the path line. This is unsteady state condition. This is steady state condition. So flow will essentially take place through this streamline, and this is your streak line. That is the line connecting the particle generated from the position. Okay. So the stream tubes are actually defines the area between two adjacent streamlines, or sometimes called as the flow channel. So for example, here these are your stream tubes. Now coming to the steady state flow, what is steady state flow? So steady state flow refers to the condition where the fluid properties are not changing, or fluid properties at one particular point uh, in the system does not change over time. So that is your steady state condition. So this fluid property that does not change with time includes temperature, pressure, and velocity. And one of the most significant properties that is constant in steady state system is actually your mass flow rate. So this is rho is actually your mass flow rate. So that means that there is no accumulation of mass within any component of the system. So divergence of rho u is equal to 0. This is your mass flow rate. U is actually your vector. It's actually in two direction you have right, ux, u, y, and z. So the same thing is written here. We have seen how we have arrived at this equation. So this is divergence of. So in previous few slides, we have denoted this u with q. So u and q are essentially that's the flow rate. Okay. So divergence of k by mu rho gradient. This is your gradient of it. So that is equal to 0. So this equation is valid for any linear horizontal flow of an incompressible fluid in an isotropic porous media. So what it means that the rate of recharge and discharge through the drainage system is same if it is in the uniform and steady state condition. So it means that rate of recharge to the groundwater is uniform and steady. That it equals to the discharge to the drainage system. So since if it is in steady state system, the water table remains at same height as long as the recharge continues. Okay, so there is no accumulation of the mass. So this divergence of this mass flow rate is equal to 0. Now to analyze the flow of groundwater to the drainage system, the following assumptions that we have to make so that we can arrive at some kind of analytical solution. So these assumptions include, there are 3 assumptions. The first assumption is actually your subsurface your flow is actually 2-dimensional. That means the flow that you are studying is considered to be identical if you consider any cross section perpendicular to the drainage. Okay. So this is true for only for the infinitely long drain. Second is actually the recharge is uniformly distributed. That is your second assumption, means recharge is actually uniformly distributed within the space. Third is actually your soil are homogeneous anisotropic, means their hydraulic conductivity in direction as well as permeability in space is not changing. So that is actually your third assumption. Okay. So this is one diagram that denotes the cross section of an open field drain. So this is the shallow, this is the open field drain or deep drainage system, and this is a pipe drainage system or groundwater drainage. This is the pipe drainage system, and this is your deep open deep drain system. Okay. So this figure shows the true cross section of drainage system under steady state conditions. So both are in the steady state condition. Because so here you can see the groundwater is being recharged in the form of because of the precipitation or the recharge from seepage or irrigation, and water table is curved. So this is your water table. So this is a midway between these two drains. So this is a, let's say the spacing is total S. So this is S by 2 here, S by 2 here. And from this point to this point, it is again curving. So the whatever water you have, so if you say this example, the Q is actually your recharge. Okay. So if you want to maintain in groundwater drainage, our objective is to maintain water level at desired depth. Okay. So we can choose the steady state flow, Q like recharge is equal to the discharge, so that this water level can be maintained. So here you can see the Q is actually your recharge. Half of, so on this side the water will be collected from this drain, and on this side it will be collected by this drain. And these are the velocity vector that represent the flow that is taking place in that is taking place below the soil surface. Another very important assumptions that we are going to see or we are going to use in the designing problems is actually your Dupuit-Frenchmeyer assumption. So this is actually so it's horizontal flow-based solution. So in order to simplify the solution, we have to assume certain things, and these are actually denoted by the Dupuit and Frenchmeyer. So you can see the article if you want to see much detailed explanation on this thing. You can just visit this their paper. So coming to the assumption, this assumption. So most of the drainage equations are actually, as I said, following the Dupuit-Frenchmeyer assumption, and this allows us to reduce the two-dimensional flow into one-dimensional flow by assuming the parallel and horizontal flow line. So right now, so this is your actual pattern, and this is the after application of Dupuit-Frenchmeyer assumption. So here you can see the flow lines are not parallel, and they are also the equipotential lines are also not perpendicular, and they are varying with respect to depth. So we have to approximate this one. So this can be approximated like this. So that we can write a simple equation. We can so that we can solve the governing differential equation for a practical drainage problem. So this is the actual thing, and we have approximated like this. The flow lines here are not essentially parallel, and equipotential lines are not exactly perpendicular, and the flow velocity is subjected to the depth. Okay. Whereas in this assumption, we have to assume three things. The first assumption is actually the flow line. So let's say this is your first equipotential line. So the flow is happening from this point to this point because there is a potential difference. These are two potential lines, equipotential lines. They are actually two equipotential lines are vertical. That is first assumption. Second assumption is actually the flow line. The flow line, horizontal flow lines are actually horizontal and parallel to each other. Okay. And the third assumption is the flow velocity in the plane at all the depth. At all the depth is proportional to the slope of water table only, independent of the depth of the flow system. So that is the third assumption. That is the flow velocity in the plane at all the depth is proportional to the slope of water table slope of water table, like only slope of the water table, independent of the depth in the flow system. Okay, so we'll see this term again in the next slide. What is meant by different terms? Okay, so here P is actually a point from which we are actually want to calculate the specific discharge that is denoted by QS. Okay. Theta is actually the angle between theta is this angle. Okay. Now this is actual case, and we have approximated here. Okay. ds is actually your surface, and ds is actually your potential difference. ds is actually the length, and this ds is actually your curve. This water table surface. Okay. So since we know that the hydraulic head phi is a function of x, y, and time x, y, z, and time t, so space and time. So therefore, at any point P, let's assume this case, point P, the specific discharge QS in the direction is in the direction tangent to the streamline. So this is your streamline, so it's perpendicular to that one, tangent to that one. Now, since this is subjected to atmosphere, or this is the aquatic surface, so the potential is essentially because of the elevation. Okay. So phi is equal to z. So we can write this equation like this: QS, that is actually your specific discharge at point P, which is in the direction tangent to the streamline, is equal to, so QS is equal to minus K times d phi, that is a potential difference, by ds. Okay. So now we are seeing this phi is nothing but is essentially coming from the elevation. So we can write this in terms of dz. So we can write minus K dz by ds. So you can see this here dz by ds, if you call this as dz, and this is ds. So dz by ds is nothing but sine theta. Okay. Now another approximation what DUPIT has done is actually that since this like this slope is very small, so we can approximate sine theta is equal to tan theta. So if we assume tan theta in place of sine theta, if we assume tan theta, then it will become QS is equal to minus K tan theta, which can be given as Q is equal to minus K. Remember, this is theta dH by dx. So this is your specific discharge at point P. Okay. So this is your DUPIT-Franchmere assumption. Another important thing you can see here that small the assumption of small theta is equivalent to the following assumption. Here you can see since we assume this small theta is very small, it means the equipotential line. So we can see the equipotential lines are vertical, the flow lines are horizontal, and the hydraulic head is a function of x and y only. Okay. So this is your DUPIT-Franchmere assumption. So there are 3 points: that the equipotential lines are actually vertical, the flow lines are horizontal, and the hydraulic head is a function of x and y only. Or you can say the flow velocity in the plane at all depth is proportional to the slope of this water table. Okay. Now next come to the design part. So in the design part, so these are the a few principles for, so designing means effectively what we are doing. So we are considering following like following criteria, not exactly criteria, but we are taking care of following things. So first, the design of the surface criteria, developing criteria that specify the operation of the system and physical configuration that fulfill the drainage objectives. So first, we need to specify the operation of the system and physical configuration that is required that will fulfill the drainage objectives. Then we have to consider the irrigation and drainage system as an integral part of water management system. Our drainage criteria should be such that it should minimize the deep percolation loss. This can be done either by using the improved irrigation practices, or you can use the proper drainage installation. It also characterized by establishing the water table depth at midpoint between laterals and drainage coefficient, and then specify options regarding how to reuse the drainage water for irrigation or stimulation of in situ used by the crop to control of water table. So these are the few criteria that we are taking care in case of design principle. Okay, so these are the design steps. So first is the investigation of the study area, that is actually what kind of soil we have, the soil study of soil profile, geohydrologic and groundwater quality. Then the measurement, so we have to measure the quality of proposed irrigation water. What should be the water quality of that the drainage system. Then we have to estimate we have to identify what are the sources of drainage water other than irrigation, what are the source of excess water other than the irrigation. Then reviewing and analysis. So that can be done using the climate data for that particular area. Then selecting appropriate crops and cropping pattern, and then measuring the property that is actually governing the flow through porous media, that is the hydraulic conductivity of the root zone. Then based on these things, this information, estimate the drainage coefficient, and then obtain the suitable combination of depth of drainage and the spacing of lateral. Okay, so by varying one, how to what is the effect in terms of the performance can be analyzed. So optimum combination of drain depth and lateral spacing, that can be some optimization is required, and then determining the based on that, once that is done, then determining the lateral pipe size and main pipe size, and then designing of envelope material, then designing of disposal system or reuse drainage water, and design the pump size to pump the maximum drainage out of the field. So these are the main design steps involved in designing any drainage system. Okay, so these are the broader outline of outlines of principle and practices. So we can divide it into 4 or 5 parts. The first part, the field investigation, as I said. So first, understand the study area. Okay, that will be helpful for identifying the or for knowing the problem, or to help us to diagnose the drainage problem. And that can also help us to conceive the possible solution. Okay. So field investigation means diagnosis of the problem, or what is the nature of the problem, and what are the causes of that problem, and what is the basis of plan formulation. Okay. So first, study nature and the cause of the problem. Either it is because of impeded percolation or high water table. Identify the source of excess water, or is there any bottleneck in the collection or disposal of excess water. So understanding the problem, nature and cause of the problem. Then studying the harmful effect. What can be the harmful effect of this one? Excessive water table. So how much area will be affected? The frequency of the excess water, frequency of the period of excess water, and then seasonal period of excess water, frequency and the seasonal period of excess water. Then the effect on what will be the effect on crops. Okay, that also needs to be studied. So what are the harmful effects if we don't design the drainage system? So that also needs to be studied. Then next part involves the collection of data, the soil data, the geographic data, hydrological data, and various other data sets, so that we can prepare a base map that can be helpful while formulating the while planning the activity to take care of the harmful effect of drainage system. So in addition to the drainage design variables, we have to also investigate the environmental, socio-economical and technical aspects that we have to consider before formulating the plan. So based on the nature, causes, we have and collection of data, we have to roughly formulate some plan by considering the environmental and socio-economical aspect. That is actually a field investigation. Next is actually a stages of project preparation. Okay. So you can divide this these stages depending on the detailing and generalization. So the very beginning, the detailing detailing will be smaller, whereas if you proceed, the detailing will increase and the mineralization will be decreased. So first is actually identification stage. So first, that involves the first formulation of the project. That is actually mostly on the basis of available information. So hardly we do any analysis and appraisal. So this is first formulation or identification stage. Second stage is actually your pre-feasibility stage. So in which information is collected through different surveys or investigation and some preliminary diagnosis of the drainage problem is made. And then based on that rough outline of some possible solution, then delineation of project area and its subdivision is made. That is actually your feasibility stage. And then we have to show that, sorry, this is actually your pre-feasibility stage. Okay. So it will give you the rough outline of possible solution and documentation of importance of the project. Then the feasibility stage, the information that is collected through surveys that we have collected, then select based on this problem definition and the data collection and understanding the nature of problem, selection of best available solution and technically sound plan that also enable 10% accuracy can be selected. That is your feasibility stage. Then that is your final stage that actually the elaboration of all the forms in the form of working documents, then designing, plan designing and drawing and specification. All these steps are involved in your final stage. Okay, so detailed plan of design, the construction drawing, specification, all these things will be detailed layout and detailed documents will be generated in this final stage. Then next is planning and design. Okay, so we can divide it into three groups. So we have to consider so in the preparation of drainage plan, these three group of variable have to be considered. So for example, the physical characteristics of the drainage system, so what kind of drain type we are going to see, going to select structures, depth, spacing, layout, and methods. Okay. So the selection of suitable types of drains, what are the structures, determination of alignment, spacing, capacities, selection of material and construction methods can be selected in the first set of variables. Second is actually your land use characteristics. So, what is the suitable type of land use, farming system, and farming practices? That is a land use characteristics variable. Third variables are actually related with the operations. Is there any organizational guideline or procedure that is given by the government or particular agency that needs to be followed? So that also sometimes become base of your design variable. Okay. So the basic design criteria is actually can be combination of two things. So relationship between essential. We have to consider the essential relationship. So the relationship between the drainage and farming have to be. So this is this is our problem: the occurrence of excessive water on land. Okay. So we have to consider two different relationships. So relationship between the drainage and occurrence of excess water, so that relationship, and relationship between the occurrence of excess water and the farming variables. Okay, and then based on that, based on the cost and benefit, we have to design the basic design criteria. Okay, so sometimes this basic design criteria is simply based on the experience rather than the scientific knowledge. So okay. So current basic design criteria, therefore, mostly based on the, let's say, the experience at that field level. So these are the essential relationships that need to be considered. This is a relationship between drainage and occurrence of excess water, and relation between the farming and occurrence of excess water. Okay, so the basic design criteria are formulated in different ways for like groundwater drainage and shallow water drainage. Shallow drainage. In case of groundwater drainage, so basic design criteria for groundwater drainage is actually mostly related with the water table control. and water table control that is occurred during and after occurrence of high period of rainfall or high uh, event of rainfall and recharge. The water table control can be formulated in different ways, either by steady state conditions or based on non-steady state conditions. So steady state condition means we are assuming that we are maintaining the water level uh, uh, and we are maintaining the recharge is equal to discharge with relationship to constant time. This is a steady state condition. The non-steady state condition means we have different criteria, means the conditions are changing with time. So either we can go with the falling water table criteria, in which our concern is how fast water table is falling, or how fast this water table should fall after after rising and rising to an unexpectedly high value. That is actually your falling water table criteria. The second criteria is actually second criteria in non-steady condition is actually your fluctuating water table, means we can impose some kind of limits on the frequency and duration of occurrence of this high water table incident. So all of these criteria we are going to see in the design in designing module in the next few classes. So this is in case of groundwater drainage. Similarly, shallow water drainage also, the criteria prescribed within which period of time the excess water on the land must be evacuated. Okay, so that is the important criteria in case of shallow drainage. Then next is the design rainfall or the recharge. Okay. Or suppose the water problem is essentially because of the high rainfall. Then the design should be based on the rainfall during the crop sensitive period. So for example, this is actually the relationship between the rainfall frequency and the rainfall depth and return period. So this kind of frequency curve can be studied for different rainfall periods. So this is an example of rainfall frequency curve for 48 periods. So we can choose one particular rainfall depth and we can choose that as a design depth. So anything below this depth can be controlled, and above that it cannot be controlled. So we have to choose the option that is more feasible or more economical to us, both the cost as well as the harmful effect we have to consider, and based on that we have to select the design rainfall. Okay. So here in this example, it shows the 48-hour rainfall. So for example, that if you choose 40 mm rainfall, so 40 mm rainfall is expected to occur on an average one in one time, one in 1 year, means one in 1 year. That is actually frequency, and one time in 1 year. Okay. For example, this 75 is around. So if you choose a drainage system designed for 48-hour rainfall for 75 mm, it will be able to cope up with the 48-hour rainfall up to 75 mm. So this is your design rainfall. While the rainfall mm exceeds this one, so this is the uncontrolled. So your design is you are not designing for this part, but you are essentially designing for this part. Okay. So here, you can see this is actually your one in let's say 1 in 3.5 years. Okay. So for agricultural system, we generally assume that the optimum is reached when the system is designed on the basis of around 1 to 2 years, and 1 to 2 or 1 to 5 years, or 1 in 2 on an average once in 1 year, or once in 2 years, or once in 5 years. So that depends on what kind of crop you are going. So for example, in case of grassland, in UK, ideally they follow practices like once in 2 years for grassland, and once in 5 years for arable land, and once in 10 years for horticultural land. So another things for we can choose a lower frequency for shallow drainage, whereas for groundwater drainage we can choose higher frequency, like once in 2 years. Where in case of shallow drainage, we can choose once in 2 years or once in 5 years. So critical rainfall type for shallow drainage system. So in case of shallow drainage system, so what is the critical criteria? So intense short duration rainfall is more critical in case of shallow drainage system. Okay. Whereas in case of groundwater drainage system, moderately intensive and prolonged duration rain season is more critical. So these are the critical rainfall type in case of shallow and groundwater. So this is again shows the classification. So how they have arrived at this 75 mm the design rainfall. So for example, for 25 mm rainfall depth of 48-hour rainfall, the return period is around 0.5. Okay. So return period is around 0.5. So return period is around 0.5. So for 50 mm, it is around 1.5. So for 50 mm, it is 1.5. For 75 mm depth, 75 mm of 48-hour rainfall, the return period is around 3.5. So likewise, they have calculated like this. And how many such events are rainfall events are happening which are exceeding these values? So for example, how many such events are there which exceed this value greater than 25 mm? Okay. So since so in total year we have like 365 days. Uh, so for example, here it is. So what it means here in one year we can expect two such episodes of rainfall greater than 25 mm. Here we can expect so return period is 1.5, so we can expect 0.67 number of events in 1 year of uh, value greater than 50 mm. Likewise, we can calculate the annual number of rainfall greater than this R value. Now, based on that, we can also have this kind of classification. So, what is the average number of rainfall within this interval between 0 to 25? So, for example, so this is 48-hour rainfall. So, in 1 year, we have around like 365 days. So 365 by 2 means 182.5 are the non-overlapping 48-hour rainfall periods per year. Okay. So since there are two such episodes which are having magnitude greater than 25 mm, so 182.5 minus this 2 will be your 180.5. So these many number of rainfall episode can like within 0 to 25 mm interval, this many annual number of rainfall for this interval. Similarly, from this to this one, okay. So 2 to minus 0.67 means 1.33 between these limits 25 to 50. Likewise, we can arrive at this. Okay. So in this case, they have selected the 75 mm as a rainfall design rainfall depth because it is more feasible both in terms of feasibility as well as the economical point of view. Now, next is the design of field drainage system. So, these are the different variables that are involved in the groundwater drainage system and shallow water drainage system. Okay, so in groundwater drainage system, so we have to see, we have to select the type and layout of the system, the discharge capacity Q on for which we are going to design, then water table depth that to be maintained in the field related to the soil surface denoted by H. So this is your H. So depth of water table that we have to maintain. This is the depth of drainage base, and this is the height of water table at the midpoint denoted by small h. So field drainage base next is field drainage base width W, that is h minus h is equal to W, and water table head is actually equal to W minus h. So this is your W, and W minus h is actually your small h. And then the spacing of field drains. So spacing between these two drains, so L is your spacing. In case of shallow drainage system, you have to choose a type and layout of the system. Then what is the discharge capacity or design discharge or Q that we are going to choose, and for which you have to design. And then field drainage base with W, that is a water table depth that to be maintained in a field drainage. So this is the W that needs to be maintained from the surface. Okay. So with that, so in the today's class, we have seen okay, another thing in case of steady state formula, so how steady state formula is different from the unsteady state formula. In case of steady state formula, the steady constant flow occurs through the soil in the drain. So condition is essentially steady and discharge equal to discharge, and this H is constant, means we are going to maintain the water table. Whereas in case of unsteady, we are either going with the fluctuating water table or falling water table. So all parameters vary in time. Okay. So in the today's class, we have seen the some more terminologies. So we have seen the essential basic equation that we are going to use. Then different terms, superficial lines, thin lines, and what is the steady state flow, what are the assumptions in case of steady state flow. We have seen what is the Dupuit-Funchmeyer assumption, so that we can arrive at some analytical expression to solve the drainage problem. Then we have seen the what is meant by design principle, what is meant by drainage design, and what things we are going to consider. What are the steps involved, right from the investigation to the design of designing steps, and then outline of the process, the field investigation, collection of the data, that is actually understanding the nature and the cause of the problem, and having some preliminary preliminary plan or formulating plan. Then stages of project preparation, identification stage, pre-feasibility stage, feasibility stage, and planning stage. And then planning and design variable, the variable related with the physical characteristics of the drainage system, the land use characteristics, and operational rules, variables related with the operational rules. And then the basic design criteria, we have to consider both the relationship between the occurrence of excess water in the drainage and occurrence of excess water and the farming. Then then the criteria for groundwater drainage and shallow water drainage. So water table control is essentially main criteria for groundwater table. We can either go with the steady state condition or non-steady state condition. In non-steady state condition, we have two criteria: falling water table and fluctuating water table. And in shallow water table, the time is more important. We have to get rid of excess water as soon as possible. Okay. And then how to choose design variable depending on the cost-benefit ratio. Then this kind of rainfall frequency curve can be analyzed to choose the proper rainfall depth for the field of rain. Okay, and there are different variables involved in the groundwater drainage system design and the shallow water drainage system design, and how the steady water formula is different from the unsteady state formula that we have seen in this class. So with that, we'll stop here for today's class. In the next class, we're going to start with the drainage subsurface drainage system by considering the steady state formula as well as the unsteady state formula. So with that, we'll stop here. Thank you.